wind began to whoosh, whoosh, boom, on thundercloud. Welcome to Chillin Tuesday here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Yes, you know my mum calls me James. I've got a seahorse behind me. His name's, I don't know. It's a seahorse. Anyway, Chillin Tuesday. I've got Sky over there. She's my witness, the Jehovah's Witness. She's watching. That's like you're watching in the future. And here on the 27th of May in Gyra, the temperature's dropped and it's fantastically beautiful. It's 8.2 degrees outside, but it feels like minus 1.5 because the wind has begun to whoosh. I love that word. Whooshing wind. Thank you, Henry Lawson, for introducing that word to my vocabulary as an adjective for wind. Right, so and tomorrow's max, it's only going to be 10 with more whooshy wind and overnight 2 degrees, which means we might even get like freezy stuff and ice and all of that kind of stuff. It's getting cold. Tonight, I'm doing a special on R.D. FitzGerald, the surveyor and poet, not his father, Robert D. David FitzGerald, nor his grandfather, nor great-grandfather, Robert D. FitzGerald and Robert D. FitzGerald, but Robert D. FitzGerald, who lived from 1902 to 1987, nicknamed Bob. Robert D. FitzGerald, in my opinion and many other poets' opinions, was a pretty good poet. He was a surveyor and a poet. He was born on the 22nd of February. And I'm reading this out of the Australian Dictionary of Biography. You can find that at adb.anu.edu.au. And he was born in Sydney. As I said, his father had the same name. And he was a civil engineer, and his wife, Ida Legay, nee Brereton, his paternal grandfather was Robert David FitzGerald, and his uncle was John Legay Brereton, who was also a poet. So there you go. So Bob, or R.D. FitzGerald, Robert D., was educated at Sydney Grammar and the Uni of Sydney, and he studied science and wrote poetry for the literary journal Hermes, and decided to train as a surveyor and was licensed in 1925. In 1926, he began private practice in Sydney. He married Marjorie Harris, who was a librarian, in 1931. As far as what did he do as far as his writing? He lectured on poetry at the universities of Melbourne and Queensland, and in 1963, on a Fulbright scholarship at the University of Texas, he saw the poet as the inheritor and the preserver of a long tradition of craftsmanship. That's right, and he really did appreciate poetry, and I think the last one that I'm going to be reading today, and the last line that I'm going to read out from Just Once, one of his later poems, says how he loved verse and he preferred verse to bad poetry. You'll get that line right at the end. And here it is. And one final curse: hell take freak poetries. I like good verse. Yeah, that's it. That's the line I'm going to read later. The last line of tonight. He wrote so much, and he was very widely published in many magazines and newspapers and all kinds of stuff. As I said, he was certainly up in literary circles, being a professor and lecturing in poetry, and widely respected as a good poet. All right, so let's get the show on the road, and we're going to start from some of Robert D. FitzGerald's early life, and I've got this book of poetry here, Australian Poetry from 1945. This comes out of the Australian Poetry Library and Archive, as do all of these books tonight. And if you've got any poetry books that you are not using and would like to donate to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, Australian Poetry Library and Archive, give me a bell or an email on oneenglish1@gmail.com or a bell on 0423478656 or even a message via Facebook Messenger under Australian Poetry Hall of Fame -Gyra. Go to that page and check it out. That's where you'll find out all the events that are happening here as well. And also on the website, australianpoetryhalloffame.com.au. And you can also see there some of our merch, like this beautiful Australian Poetry Hall of Fame cup that you can buy, or some of the t-shirts, and the money goes to support Australian poetry, of course. Go to cola, you know. Good for your brain. Keeps your peripheral circulation circulating, spinning around in my head, blood, and that's why I'm not dead. The Scavenger from, 1945 by Robert D. FitzGerald. And the scavenger he's talking about in this poem is time. The Scavenger. What time has raked up, he can have. His scavengings and thievings, however he may hook and shave, he only gets my leavings. That moment once was good and grave, this other good and merry, and there's one not so good, God save, they're barely fit to bury. It's when he puts his dirty claws upon the work not finished, to sneak it from me as I pause, with will and strength diminished. It's when the full glass fortune draws, spills at my lips untasted, while day dies on the hills, I've cause to curse him for what's wasted. And see, girl, through the window now, the light comes in, it's morning. This kiss rounds up the rest. I vow the stragglers shall heed warning. Time strips the blossom, snaps the bough, and who'd begrudge dead timber? He takes, but all he'll not allow is bitterest to remember. Yeah, wow, time, hey? Cool. I like that poem. I like all of the ones I've selected tonight. That's why I'm reading them to you. Yeah, anyway. Right. Australian Poetry, 1959. Another Angus and Robertson publication. And there was a great deal of good poems from Robert D that year. But this one certainly is one of his more famous. And yes, it's called The Wind at Your Door. Whoosh. Whooshy wind. It's been whooshing a lot of wind here in Gyra today. We had gusts of up to 80 kilometres an hour today here in Gyra. That's amazing. That's whooshy. The Wind at Your Door by Robert D. FitzGerald. My ancestor was called on to go out, a medical man, and one such must, by law, wait in attendance on the pampered knout, and lend his countenance to what he saw, lest the pet, patting with too bared a claw, be judged a clumsy pussy, bitter and hard, see, as I see him, in that jailhouse yard. Or see my thought of him, though time may keep elsewhere tradition or a portrait still, I would not feel under his cloak of sleep, if beard there or smooth chin just to fulfill some canon of precision, good or ill. His blood's my own, and scratching in his grave could find me more than I might wish to have. Let him then be much of the middle style, of height and colouring let his hair be dark, and his eyes green, and for that slit the smile that seemed inhuman, have it cruel and stark. But grant it could be too the ironic mark of all caught in the system who the most, the doctor or the flesh twined round that post. There's a high wind blowing on that day. For one who would not watch but looked aside, said that when twice he turned it blew his way, splashes of blood and strips of human hide, shaken out from the lashes that were plied by one right-handed and one left-handed tough, sweating at this paid task and skilled enough. That wind blows to your door down all these years. Have you not known it when some breath you drew tasted of blood? Your comfort is in arrears of just thanks to a savagery tamed in you, only as subtle of fears may serve in you, of thong and noose, old savagery which has built your world and laws out of the lives it spilt. For what was jail yard widens and takes in my country, 50 paces of stamped earth stretch, and grey walls retreat and grow so thin that towns show through, and clearings new raw birth, which burst from handcuffs and free hands to go forth, to win tomorrow's harvest from a vast ploughland, the 50 paces of that past. But see it through a window barred across from cells this side, facing the outer gate, which shuts on freedom, opens on its loss. In a flat wall, look left narrow through the grate, at buildings more like walls, roofed with grey slate or hollowed in the thickness of laid stone, each side the court where the crowd stands this noon. One there with the officials, thick of build, not stout, say burly. So this obstinate man, ghosts in the eyes, is he whom enemies killed. As I was taught, because the monopolist clan found him a grit in their smooth turning plan, too loyally active on behalf of Bligh, so he got lost and history passed him by. But now he buttons his long coat against the biting gusts, or as a gesture of mind, habitual, as if to keep him fenced from stabs of slander, sticking him from behind, sped by the schemers, never far to find in faction where approval from one source damns in another clubroom, as of course. This man had hunter's confidence, king's praise, and settlers on the starving Hawkesbury banks recalled through twilight, drifting across their days, the doctor's fee of little more than thanks. So often, and how sent by their squeezed ranks, he put their case in London. I find I lack the hateful paint to daub him wholly black. Perhaps my life replies to his too much, through veiling generations dropped between. My weakness here resents their may touch, old motives and explain them, till I lean to the forgiveness I must hope may clean my own shortcomings, since no man can live in his own sight if it will not forgive. Certainly, I must own him whether or not it be my will. I was made to understand this much when once marking a freehold lot. My papers suddenly told me it was land, granted to Martin Mason. I felt his hand heavily on my shoulder and knew what coil binds life to life through bodies and soul to soil. There, over to one corner, a bony group of prisoners waits, and each shall be in turn tied by his own arms in a human loop about the post with his back bared to learn the price of seeking freedom. So they earn 300 rippling stripes apiece as set by the law's mathematics against the debt. These are the Irish batch of Castle Hill, rebels and mutineers, my countrymen, twice over first because of those to till my birthplace first, hack roads, race roofs, and then because their older land time and again enrolls me through my forebears, and I claim as origin that threshold whence we came. One sufferer had my surname, and thereto Morris, which added up to history once. An ignorant dolt, no doubt, for all that crew was tenantry. The breed of clod and dunce makes patriots and true men, I could announce. That Morris, as my kin I say aloud, I'd take his irons as heraldry and be proud. Morris is at the post, its music lulls, 100 lashes done if backbone shows, then play the tune on buttocks, but feel his pulse, that's what a doctor's for, and if it goes lamely, then dose it with those purging blows, which have not made him moan, though writhing there. Let my neck be, he says, and flog me fair. 100 lashes more, then rest the flail. What says the doctor now? This dog won't yelp. He'll tire you out before you see him fail. He's strength to spare. Go on. Hey, pounds to pop. Yet, when you're done, he'll walk without your help and knock down the guards who'd carry him being bid, and sing no song of where the pikes are hid. It would be well if I could find removes through generations back, who knows how far, more than a surname's thickness as a proved bridge that man's foundations. I need some star of courage from his firmament, a bar against surrender's faith. All trials are less than rain blackened wind tells of that old distress. Yet I can live with Mason, what is told, and what my heart knows of his heart consort. Much truth from falsehood, much there that I hold. Good clearly, or good clouded by report. And for things bad, ill grows where ills resort. They were bad times. None know what in his place they might have done. I've my own faults to face. Yeah, Robert D. FitzGerald, The Wind at Your Door. and that's from Australian Poetry 1959. Right, moving along. The next one I'm reading out of is from a book of Australian verse compiled and edited by Judith Wright, selected by Judith Wright, and the poem of Robert D. FitzGerald's that I've got here. This one is 1918 to 1941. So that's the interwar period between the First World War and the Second World War. Not those patient men who knocked and were unheeded, where ignorance impeded like a flat panel swung, before the tower stair to the dark mind of the young. Another moved beside them on the dais at the desk, wore in a square cap, gowned and grotesque. This was the master whose tongue did the talking. Then time became a chafing of dates upon the wall. For no lad chose a calling who heard instead a call. And just beyond a boy's years, so the lesson ran. The one work waited, fitting for a man. None grew so tiptoe as to see the plain road yonder. At the hour's edge, dip under the leagues of calm before. It was odd to break step and shamble from the door, to plough the broad peace and grow older and learn pride from the day's task met and the morrow still defied. Distant the guns are and no wind fearing has brought them into hearing, nor yet in these lands do they bawl between hills as between a pair of hands. But here's what we were bred to, and strange it is then to be lifting our sons up to watch the marching men. Tattered, the bewilderment I pull across my shoulders, and shame before beholders in this torn shirt. Like a slave to my shoes, I wander unalert, with eyes but no thought in them to mark the way I tread, and a thought without eyes that runs lost in my head. 1918 to 1941 by Robert D. FitzGerald. Next one is called Traditional Tune. Though moonlight dapples pastime effacement, the harbour ripples the candied air. It's all deserted like lover from love's casement. There has departed what found these fair. Yet where I follow some few hours older, and call youth shallow from wisdom's crutch, life meets me gaudy, a rose pinned at her shoulder, for hands as greedy as once dead touch. O moon-drowned city, be long of learning that graver ditty than old delight, that song of mortals of over springs returning, the flash that hurtles through up a night. Yes, the next one is Edge by Robert D. FitzGerald. Knife's edge, moon's edge, water's edge, graze the throat of the formed shape, that sense fills where shape vanishes, air at the ground limit of steel, the thin disk in the moon's curve, land gliding out of no land. The new image, the freed thought, are carved from that inert bulk where the known ends and the unknown is cut down before it at the mind's edge. The knife edge at the throat of darkness. That's called Edge by Robert D. FitzGerald. And now, Song of autumn, which is just perfect because it's really the middle of autumn, the end of autumn. It's blowing a gale and it's really cold. It's the end of autumn, isn't it? End of autumn here in Guyra, and it's very, very cold. And we love it. I love it anyway, but I'm not too sure that Robert D. FitzGerald loved it. Here we go. Song in Autumn. Though we have put white breath to its brief caper in the early air, and have known elsewhere stiff fingers, frost underfoot, sun thin as paper. Cold then was a lens, focusing sight and showed the rigger's gear, the spider's cables, anchored between the immense steel trusses of built grass. The hills were so near, you could pick up pebbles. It is different at evening, damp rises, not crisp or definite like frost, but seeping into the blood and brain, the end of enterprises. And while out of many things lost, courage may remain. This much is certain, from others' experience, and was indeed foretold. Noon's over, the days shorten. Let there be no pretense, none here likes the cold. Yes, that's it. Okay. A song in autumn, but I like the cold. I do, but I'm cold. I'll put my sleeve down. Yeah, I am cold, but I like it. All right. Okay, that's that book. Next one I've got for you from The Four Corners by Jacaranda Press. I think this was published in 1969. It's called Macquarie Place. I will go out and hear the strain of rat bag orators at large. There is a battery in my brain which just that fever might recharge. The blends of curious craziness which crank and anarchist extol could fill their electric stress, the run-down fury of my soul. Whether some economic scheme to conquer currencies and spread over the honeyed earth its dream moves them that all men may be fed, or whether warnings of the worst in diet or drink or the boss, or judgment coming with a burst, they bring back vision gone as loss. For nudist, atheist or pest, half genius and half distraught, has in his frenzy of unrest the drive of some determining thought. God keep me sane until my last of breath or knowing, but let faint fervour still reach me from the vast madness of prophet and of saint. I could proclaim the world is flat with reasonable skill and wit, but need fanatic zest, if that I would persuade myself of it. So I will cross Macquarie Place and covet zeal as crude as loud. In lunch hour, lunatics who face amused indifference of the crowd. Oh, I love that one. I love that. That's all about like how he's walking across Macquarie Place and there's all these mad people like standing on soapboxes. It probably doesn't happen anymore. Well, probably I don't know. I've never been to Macquarie Place, but back in the day, yeah, there must have been a whole lot of weirdos there at lunchtime, all preaching about whatever their agenda was, you know. That's a great poem. I really think it really. I just like it. I just like the way it's quite like you're all mad. That's what he's saying. Yeah. And he's having a laugh at them. So I will cross Macquarie Place and covet zeal as crude as loud. In lunch hour, lunatics who face amused indifference from the crowd. Yeah, the final line there, that cracks it, really. Glad I wrote that one out. Okay, the next one I've got for you is from Australian Voices, Poetry and Prose of the 1970s, edited by Rosemary Dobson. And this is a movement by Robert D. FitzGerald. Yeah, it's short, three verses, but all the same, really lovely movement. Wheels whirred beneath me and above, where the star-tangling rooftops flowed. The moon rode with me as I rode through shortening streets to meet my love. This is not just what years recall, 40 years gone and more are less than one breath moment's happiness. Time has no part in it all. Drifts of our streaming life expand into the neither now nor then of movement become the world as when this hand goes out to touch her hand. Drifts of our stream life expand into the neither now or then of movement become the world as when this hand goes out to touch her hand. That's a nice ending little stanza there. And what have I got for you finally? I've got some verses out of this book called Later Verses by Robert D. FitzGerald. It's called Product. And it's got pictures of pine trees on it, which are, of course, a product. They're produced, aren't they? Grown. I used to be a forester myself, have a forest nursery and grow forests and stuff like that before I was a poet. Later Verses by Robert D. FitzGerald. Proceedings of an Historical Society. History loses day by day the trifles trickling time away, the straws that scattered while you slept, the diary that you never kept. Several stories that have missed index card and archivist, or any gossip one might quote as a laughing anecdote. Too much talk, I say, we've spent on some house or monument, with no virtue to engage mind or eyesight, but its age. All the prison anguish known through the pick marks on the stone, yet where nothing has occurred worthy a remembering word. Fragments other than those made, trophies of a learned spade, crumble also and are cast across the desert of the past, little for a curious hand to sift from that engulfing sand, as face or action that survives the loves and angers of old lives. Proceedings of an Historical Society. The next one I've got for you, Foreign Waters. Scratch my nose. Foreign waters. I have drunk water from a stream in Skye, flooding out of the Cullens and the mist, of legend and time's drift, and having the taste of steel drawn in lost causes. In Ireland too, infidel, yet more pilgrim than passer-by, I cupped my hands at a well that Bridget blessed, or some once local saint who has the trust of farmers hoeing the fields the saint walked through. And I recall how I was taught to dread danger in casual waters, and how at first, working with sturdy people of strength fled, as I translate the name, I seemed immersed. Too newly in life for strains of it to show or serve me as experience, so instead I borrowed warning's wisdom and swallowed thirst, while brown men drank from a clear tumbling flow. But there are other springs, and from below, one man's belief, cool kindness welled. He said, God would not foul all waters. I stooped to drink, then and thereafter, fearless, and at the brink of the final dark, I trust I shall drink so. Water's the throb of life in the world's veins, whether its tides follow the moon's path, or within man the animal reenact the swell of that salt waste whence primal growth crawled to the sun. It is plain physical fact, not tangled up with mysticism or faith. However, much the cycle of cloud and rain, rivers and seas and cloud again sustains, a course as parallel to life as breath, almost as if some finger stirs design. And yet, could thought pursue that parallel? It might observe, reaching the shoreless tract, where parallels meet and gather line with line, matter and action fuse identical, with what in foreign waters one must define as spiritual or subjective principle, whereby it should not need much miracle for waters anywhere to change to wine. Now I've got two to go. The Girl in Song and then Just Once. The Girl in Song. That girl grew lined and angry in good time, or if you will, died young, or if you will, lived out a measure limpid as the rhyme, whereby that lamp-lit hair is golden still. All is mere song in the cold sense that now, the centuries gone, bride can have no part in today's plights, and one should disavow stab of its old anxieties in one's heart. Yet, as the young bride turned at farewell's arch, frame of beyond and laughed back into the light of her man's arm, the harper heard the march of plundering decades throbbing above the might, and plucked as if from his own love's hurt one note, which halted the dancers with its harsh distress at every departure to what lies remote, beyond conjecture and shed emptiness, left us who stare out at the future's lake of drifting distances not ours to cross, nor for the song to follow whose echoes break against the shell of silence round old loss. The Girl in the Song. Now I've got one more to go, and that is Just Once. Just once. No doubt I have lived too long. What my world was, goes, where one's way of looking at it went, to keep the fled years company, or because veins thicken and the stiffening mind gets bent, always to the rear of that environment, the province and creation of the young. Yet, since my days are still, in fact, unspent, and I still have a opinions and my tongue, I'll say just once, I like a tune well sung, not cranky music. As for abstract art, the painters, not their product, should be hung, dupes with the fakes, for both have built in part this age of shoddy. And one final curse, hell take freak poetries. I like good verse. Yeah, just once. Here, I agree, definitely. I like good verse. All right, well, that's Robert D. FitzGerald. I'm Thundercloud. Boom, washing away the garbage, leaving rainbows after rains. Don't forget to click on like, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, the bell, hit the bell button for notifications, all of that stuff that you're supposed to say and do. And I'll see you Wednesday words later. Boom.